that's truly fascinating isn't just the experience of being trapped, it's the complex dance of how we got there, and more importantly, how we can get out. Let's start with the escape. The key to extricating oneself from a conversational trap lies not always in bluntness, though it certainly has its place, but in subtlety. You see, most of us are socialized to be polite, to nod along, to avoid awkwardness at all costs. We're taught that discomfort is more rude than dishonesty. So we smile, we feign interest, and we become unwitting prisoners conversation feels like a rally in tennis, back and forth dynamic with both parties engaged. If you find yourself monologuing while the other person offers little more than nods and it might be time to self-audit. Ask a question that shifts the focus back to them, or even check in directly. Am I rambling? I get carried away sometimes. Little self-awareness can go a long way in these conversations. Moreover, pay attention to the context. Are you dominating a space where people are trying to mingle? Is the other person inching toward the door with the determination of someone who's just remembered they left the oven on at home? Respecting the natural flow of social interactions helps prevent unintentional conversational captivity. What's fascinating about all this is that it boils down to empathy. Escaping a conversation gracefully or avoiding being the trapper in the first place requires us to tune in to not just our own needs, but the unspoken signals of others. It's about reading between the lines, recognizing that silence can be just as communicative as words, and understanding that sometimes the most polite thing you can do is let a conversation end. But now that we've unpacked the mechanics of escaping and the telltale signs that you might be the one inadvertently holding someone hostage in a conversational cul-de-sac, let's go a little deeper. Because this isn't just about tactical maneuvers or reading body language. It's about the emotional undercurrents that ripple beneath every interaction. The social contracts we sign without even realizing it, and the unspoken rules we sometimes break without any malice or intent. At the heart of every conversational trap, whether you're the captor or the captive, is a simple, universal desire to connect. Even the most long-winded ramblers, the ones who can't seem to find a period in their sentences, are often just people longing to be heard, to feel seen, to share a part of themselves with someone else. That's what makes escaping a bad conversation so tricky. It's not just about getting away. It's about doing so without shattering that fragile thread of connection. So, how do we honor that? How do we exit gracefully without leaving someone feeling dismissed, disregarded, or probably the worst fate of all, boring? The answer lies in intentional kindness. Intentional kindness is the practice of being clear, considerate, and compassionate, even when you're disengaging. It's the difference between a cold, I have to go, and a warm, I really enjoyed chatting with you, but I need to catch up with someone before I head out. See the difference? The former shuts the door. The latter leaves it ajar with a breeze of goodwill drifting through. Another powerful tool is the complement and transition technique. This works because it acknowledges the person's effort while gently steering towards closure. For example, if someone has been explaining the intricate story of vintage bottle caps for too office elevator, the long car ride, family gatherings. In these inescapable scenarios, the strategy shifts from escape to mental reframing. Instead of focusing on your entrapment, shift your attention to what you can learn, or at least what you can observe. Treat it more like an anthropological study. What drives this person? What makes them light up? Sometimes viewing it as data collection rather than social suffering can make time pass a little more quickly. And who knows, you may stumble upon an unexpected gem of insight amid the verbal rubble. Circling back to those moments when we might unknowingly be the conversational trapper, how do we course correct mid-conversation? The most powerful tool here is simple: self-awareness. Pause occasionally and ask yourself, is this a dialogue or a monologue? Am I actually leaving room for the other person to contribute? If you sense the balance tipping, acknowledge it openly. Humor can be great in these situations. Wow, I've been rambling like I'm auditioning for a podcast. What did you think about all this? Self-deprecation not only lightens the moment, but invites the other person back into the space that you accidentally dominated. And here's an advanced technique: the conversational temperature check. If you're deep into sharing something, especially if it's a topic you're passionate about, sprinkle in occasional check-ins like, am I making sense? Or is this as interesting as I think it am, as I think it is? It's a subtle way to gauge interest without derailing the flow completely. It shows you're not just speaking at someone, you're engaging with them. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't touch on the silent saboteurs of good conversation: social scripts and fear of awkwardness. Social scripts are the autopilot responses we deploy out of habit. How are you? Good. You? Good. And just like that, we're locked into exchanges that feel more like choreographed dances than genuine human interactions. Breaking free from these scripts requires courage. The courage to be authentic, to ask questions that go beyond the surface, to risk a little vulnerability. Ironically, it's our fear of awkwardness that often traps us the most. We tolerate dull conversations longer than we should because we're terrified of creating discomfort. But what if we reframed awkwardness as just a passing moment, not a social catastrophe? What if we accepted that not every interaction needs to be seamless, and that sometimes it's okay to let stop talking because I liked